Andrew McConnell.
How's it going, Keith?
I'm fantastic. Hey, listen, I saw you on the calendar for the last week and I just couldn't get you out of my head.
Ironic, right?
Ironic, right? Or was it coincidental? Alanis Morissette, was it ironic or was it coincidental? Either or, I just could not get you out of my head. So why am I saying that? BAPL Nation, Andrew's the author of a Wall Street Journal successful book called Get You Out of My Head. Good segue, eh?
Yeah, nailed it.
Hey, where do you join us from today?
I'm actually in Atlanta. I normally live in Bermuda, but back for Thanksgiving week here in Atlanta.
Oh, wonderful. You normally live in Bermuda. You set the business up there?
I did not. It was funny. I took our company fully remote February. We had a year left on our lease. February of 2020. We had a year left on our lease. I sublet it. I said, hey, let's try this fully remote thing. Sublet it, sold all the furniture. And then 2 weeks later, looked like a genius because nobody was going to the office.
Oh, man, I applaud you for that. Yes, I started a virtual remote company back before people were thinking about remote. That's a whole story for another day. So to hear you say that, you woke up, why don't we go remote?
Just lucked into it. And then COVID hit and my wife's English.
Okay.
And they closed the borders. I don't know. A lot of people, if they don't have English ties, they wouldn't know this. But Europe could fly to the US, but not the Brits. We closed the borders to the Brits. And so our family couldn't come see us. We couldn't go see them. But Bermuda was this clearinghouse. So we went for a month just to see her family and let my daughter see her grandparents. And then we said, wait, we're not going to the office. Could we not go to the office from an island? And the answer was yes. We've successfully not gone to the office from an island. It's been great.
So when we put all titles aside, BAPL Nation, and we put what Andrew's achieved, what I've achieved, what you have achieved, Mr. Athlete or Mr. Business Leader, there's Andrew and his wife sitting on an island one day a number of years ago, just as two human beings. I'm thinking this is how it's going. And you're sitting here, you're reflecting, going, wait a minute. Why are we going back to the rest of the world living in normal society when we can live on a freaking island? Right? Is that basically what it was?
We were walking to lunch one day and we're looking at them. If you've ever been to Bermuda, just the colors are unreal. All these blues. We're walking along the beach, going to have sushi for lunch, and thought, this is really nice. Why wouldn't we do this every day? Let's try it.
Like I'm getting goosebumps because I can just see. Sometimes I like to pause sometimes and reflect upon moments in time and just see how they've occurred. And this is a life-changing moment for you and your wife. And it was random. It was raw. It was, and now you reflect upon it. It was purely accidental.
We challenged a bunch of assumptions, right?
Yes.
We can't because we have this place in Atlanta, or we have this, we have that and the other. And because some things got blown up, right? Our daughter wasn't going to daycare at that time. We weren't going into the office. We were able to just challenge a bunch of assumptions and reframe our life from scratch. It worked out.
That is spectacular. So let's go down the path of challenging assumptions. You're a successful entrepreneur, you're a speaker, you're an author. You have clearly challenged many assumptions in your lifetime. You're a Harvard graduate. Talk about rented.com and talk about the assumptions that challenged you to start that business.
Yeah, it was a complete journey, right? So I was in the vacation rental industry for more than a decade. But my background, like you said, I did law school in the US, did law school in the UK, went to management consulting, worked in Afghanistan, was all over the place, big companies, governments, and was just on a family vacation on another island. I was in Turks and Caicos. And two of my parents' friends started talking about VRBO back in 2012.
Yes.
I said, what's this VBRO? And they're like, no. VRBO, vacation rental by owner. It's this amazing site. We put our homes up on the internet. We make all this money. Like, wow, that sounds amazing. You just put your house on the internet. You start making money. Now, can I ask you a question? When I was in high school, we always had to throw parties at the person's house whose parents were out of town. And half the time, that person would get in trouble because the neighbors would tell on us. And you're saying now every week, our high school could just throw in $20 a person and we could just go rent your house on the internet and throw our parties there. Why is your house just not full of high school kids every weekend? You're like, oh, I have to go look up who it is. I check them on LinkedIn. I do some phone calls, make sure they're okay. Okay. But then how do you get it clean? Presumably you're not just leaving the sheets on the bed between people staying there, but you live in Atlanta and your place is in Florida. You live in Boston, your place is in Vermont. Oh, I hire a local person to go do all this work. And so I just kept asking questions, testing the assumptions. said, this sounds like it's a lot more work than just putting something on the internet and cashing checks. So, oh yeah, maybe I spend 8 to 10 hours a week doing it. So 8 to 10 hours a week, you're a cardiologist and you're a dentist that owns your own practice. You're billing insurance companies at $500 to $1,000 an hour. What in the world? Are you making $8 to $10,000 a week on these homes? Oh no, nowhere near that. I barely make that much over the course of the year. Okay, I'm sorry. You're the kind of person that doesn't mow your own lawn. You don't change your own oil. You pay people to do these things. Why are you not paying somebody to do this? Are there not people that do this for a living? Oh, yeah, they're companies, but they charge too much and they're on commission and they take 40 to 50%. They have no skin in the game. And I don't think it's worth it. I'd rather do it myself. And so I thought back to my negotiation class in law school. I said, wait, without homes like yours, these companies have no job. So why wouldn't owners just force the management companies to bid against each other to tell you exactly what they'll give you over the course of the year? Then they're not charging too much because it's a market competitive price. And they have skin in the game because have on the line to pay you. And they looked at me like I was an idiot. I said, yeah, if there's a way to do that, everybody would be doing that. I said, everybody? That sounds like a big market. Like, how big is this market? So I started researching. It was $100 billion, $150 billion market. And everybody I talked to wanted it. And all these management companies said, look, every home I get, I lose 2 to VRBO and Airbnb. Could you help me grow? Okay, well, this could be good. So I went and started this marketplace, Vacation Futures, where an owner would say, hey, in 2024, I'm only going to go to this house these 3 weeks. I'm going to sell the other 49. Who's going to pay me the most? And we started doubling revenue every 2 weeks. It was just crazy, like marketplace dynamics. And then we hit a ceiling. And so we kept testing, why is the ceiling? Do we need more supply? Do we need more buy side? What is the issue? What is the issue? And it took me probably longer than it should. But what I realized was every owner did want this. If you could give me market clearing price, none of the work, and guaranteed, great. Like, I'll sign up. But most of these management companies didn't have the money to do it. They're really small. They're really local. If a hurricane hit, and they've guaranteed all these contracts, they're out of business. They have no choice. COVID hits, right? The first couple of months, they're out of business. So I said, okay, what can we do here? And one of my frontline sales guys said, if all the owners want it, but the management companies don't have the money to do it, could we be the ones that we go give it to the owner and then we hire the management company and take the spread? I said, I don't know, let's test it. So we started testing it and we started making 72% IRR on it. Payoff period 5 months. We're like, this is a money machine. So we raised a big fund, started a separate entity, rented capital, and just started renting up these properties. I had thousands all over the world. And then another one of my employees said, hey, with this number of properties, we should take on revenue management. These local companies, they're good at cleaning beds and toilets and bathrooms and servicing the guests, but they don't have data scientists. They don't have data analysts. They don't know how to price these things. They're not sophisticated like the airlines or the hotels. We should build that out. Built it out. Within 30 days, we were making 30 to 100% more revenue. Same properties, same managers. Whoa, maybe this is its own business. So in 2020, started rented.com as a pricing engine, like you have for airlines and hotels, but for Airbnb and vacation rental space. And so launched that, and then into 22, sold that big private equity roll up. And so it's every single time testing the assumption of like, what is the business here? What is the value we can deliver? And just keep asking and move to the next thing.
For many people, it's difficult to get started. Not only did you get started, but you executed, and then you executed again, and then you tested and you executed again. Is that driven in Andrew McConnell, or did you learn that through life or?
Yeah. So I think there are two things there. One on getting started.
Yeah.
There's a chapter in my book that is how I live of lower your bar. Don't lower your standards, but lower your bar. What does it take to get started? When I started Vacation Futures, our minimum viable product, what we launched with was my cell phone, Google spreadsheets, and email. We were running these auctions manually. We would call up the owners, get their sign off, go send emails to the managers, have them send their bids to us, and then keep it in a spreadsheet and let the owner know who the winner was. And only when we hit volume to say, okay, what does the product need to look like? And then we built it incrementally from there. And so what it took to start was essentially free, right? Google Sheets, cell phone, let's just go. There's another piece of Tim Ferriss has this line, if all it took was knowledge, everybody would have a six pack. right? Everybody knows what you need to do. You need to exercise, you need to have a good diet, you need to make sure you're getting your sleep. Like this, everybody knows, but not everybody does. And I don't know if it was the background in swimming or what, but me, my roommate from college, some other people, we're very much of once we know, then we just do. I read a book, I hear the latest research on this, and it drives my wife insane. She's like, you turn on a dime. You like believe this. And I was like, yeah. And then I get data that shows me something else, and I do that thing, whatever the data says. And that's not how I realize that's not how most people go, but that's just how I operate.
The people we're talking to in this show, Andrew, are retired athletes that wake up after having an identity of one thing their whole career, looking to find their next. Business leaders that have been one thing their whole life or partially their whole life and then trying to find next. You I don't want to say fell into, but you fell into the vacation rental industry, did you not? You really did.
I did. This identity thing, it's real, right? Like in high school, early college, I was on the US national team, right? My identity, I was an athlete. That is what I was. And then I got injured into my freshman year, and it blew up that identity. Like I still competed, but I wasn't at the same level.
Yes, of course.
I wasn't just a swimmer. I was like a swimmer at this level. That's my identity. If I'm not that, then who am I? What am I? And I just fell in. I was in school.
At Harvard, if I can, and an Ivy League school, like you're going to Harvard, like that in itself, Andrew, I'll call it out. Like that in itself is something that when you're talking, I'm a Harvard graduate, that's important. Let's face it. In society today, it's in Western society, there's a lot of value placed on that. So you're a successful swimmer, you go to Harvard, the title gets bigger, doesn't it? The identity gets bigger, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets bigger. It also flipped, right? Because I saw myself as a swimmer first. That was my identity. In questioning what my identity was, I was lucky my sophomore year because I was in school. I was at Harvard. Okay, great. My identity is I'm a student. I'm a serious student. I'm going to be great at this. And so the timing was good because it allowed me to get into law school, right? And so I'm a student. I'm a serious student.
Yes.
Competing, go to the UK, do that. But then I graduate. And okay, so it's my first job. I'm a consultant, right? We have the uniforms. It's the blue shirts. It's the dark slacks. You have your Toomey bag. You fly out on Monday. You fly back on Thursday. Like this is my identity. And so I kept going through my identity is this box.
Yeah.
And then starting a company. My identity was I'm a CEO. I'm this, I'm that. And it took me till my late 30s to really say, wait, these are things I do. And probably writing the book helped it because people say, hey, what do you do? I'm like, well, I guess I do a few things. Like I write, I speak, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I run this company. And so I'm not any one thing. I'm getting rid of the labels. I'm me, and I do a bunch of things, and I can change those things that I do to align with my values and what I want to achieve at any given window of time. And so I guess all that to say, I can 100% empathize and relate to you getting to that end, and it blows up your identity. And so you can use that. And look, I went through depression and everything like when that first happened, but you can also use it as this burning platform launching pad to reframe that identity and make it something bigger and more inspiring to you for a longer term.
And it's clear to me that the obvious tip you gave, as obvious as it is, Andrew, is that set the bar low to get started, isn't it? Like get out of your head, because clearly that's a challenge that I have in my own world is getting out of my own head, frankly. So to hear you say I had to get out of my own head, I had to lower the bar, get the Google spreadsheet going, get the phone going and say, I've got a business. Boom. Right. That's it.
Yeah. Inertia is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. And it can work for you or against you. So inertia, when you're still, very hard to get up off that couch, very hard to get moving. But if you just get that little nudge and you start moving, that inertia is 100% your friend. Then you're moving, then you're going. So whatever the littlest nudge you can have just to get that ball starting to roll, it's going to keep going.
Andrew, we've had some athletes come through the lab in the last number of weeks, and some business leaders that have spoke about their challenges of dealing with their own depression as they go through transition.
Yeah.
You mentioned it a few moments ago yourself. Would you mind touching upon that experience for you and how you handled that inertia, the depression, and finding yourself to next?
Yeah, I wish it was singular. It happened at least two probably more serious times. So one was that time in college when I went from competing at this level to not anymore, and just got really down in the part. Like it, I had probably seasonal affect disorder as well because I'm in Boston, but I'm grown up in Florida in the South, and so like the cold, the dark, I'm not feeling the same. And I think for me, what made a huge difference in my life was the social connection, right? Being on a team that had my back. They would call me out, hey, get out of this, but then also they could read the closest people on the team, my roommates could read, hey, he doesn't need a kick in the butt right now. He needs an arm around the shoulder. And it didn't happen overnight, but almost being forced into a communal environment, right? We had roommates, our beds, we had 3 beds in one room. I was constantly around people who were still my best friends. We had practice 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. I was every meal we ate together. It kicked me out of that, right?
Mm.
There's another time is I was going through the same identity crisis, going through consulting. Man, I'm really not enjoying this anymore. Every Sunday night, I can't fall asleep because I am so dreading
Anxious,
getting on
right?
that plane the next day and what this week is going to look like. And I don't see a way out. I don't see anything else I can do, which is crazy in retrospect. Like this must be the entire universe of this is the only thing I can do. We're like, no, actually, you could do a billion things. This is the thing you're doing now. You could go reframe it, but it was almost the paradox of choice. There were so many things I didn't know the thing. And that one was, it was more prolonged. That may have been a year plus because I didn't have that same community. I was in team environments, team work environments,
Mhm.
but in consulting, it was constantly changing. And you'd go to the client, you'd have a new team you're working with. And so it didn't have that depth of social connection. And because I was traveling all the time, I wasn't building that social connection at home either. And so it just took much longer. And I think a big part of it was some of those deeper relationships that I had, my wife seeing it and saying, you have to get out of here, right? Really pushing me on that. People that I had built close relationships with that had gone on, reaching out and saying, hey, you need to get out of there. Here's some great opportunities. Could you come work with us? And so again, I bring it so much back to the people and the connections, building in the best of times, because those are the ones that are going to be there for you in the worst of times too. And hopefully you can be there for them.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, you've mentioned social connections a number of times here in the last few minutes is helping you get through your time in life. You enjoy getting involved in mentoring social impact startups. How do you see the role of mentorship evolving in today's business landscape? And what advice does Andrew McConnell give to someone seeking or providing mentorship?
Yeah. So the mentorship look very much for, is there a fit? Are you looking for something that I am uniquely positioned to provide?
Mhm.
So if you're coming in and you're saying, look, I really want to master digital marketing, this is what we want. Say, I'm not the expert here. You're probably better going to get something else. If it's something of, hey, we're early stage in a marketplace business, or we're early stage into a SaaS company. Okay, I've personally been through that. I talk through my experiences and advice there. Or we're contemplating pivoting and things like that in the business. Like, okay, I've done that a few times. And so it really comes down to, given where they are in their journey, can I provide value at that time? And it's not forever. I would say on the mentorship, maybe it's a 50-50 of going in. A lot of times you say, okay, yep, this is a great match, we can fit. And then half the time we do it for a while. I don't think I'm providing that much value to you. And I don't think this is the best use of either of our time. I think your time is better off going and doing the work instead of talking to me. And half the time people come in, wow, you just saved us 2 months of work. Right. And that's where say, okay, great. I want to give you more of my time. They want to get more of my time. This is a really good fit. And I probably should get better at identifying that on the front end. But the other way to do it is fail fast. Instead of saying, hey, I have to perfect on the front end, say, hey, let's jump in with a kind of quick scoring. Because it's not like I'm hiring somebody and signing all these contracts. It's, hey, we have this relationship, let's test it out. And if it's working, great. Let's just keep doing it. If it's not, My feelings aren't hurt. Your feelings aren't hurt. We both have plenty of other things we can go do. Let's go our separate ways.
Talk about the book. Talk about how you got there with the book. Talk about when the light went on.
Yeah.
How you had to get out of your own head to step outside to say, I got to write a book. And this is the book I'm going to write.
Yeah. So it was a multi-step process. So I was doing my daily swim one day and started thinking about, because I was writing for Forbes and a bunch of other people, writing a bunch on articles. I thought a book is just like writing an article, just more. And so instead of writing all these pieces of articles, could you put something coherent, cohesive together? And I had this idea of an introduction to Stoicism, as well as an introduction to entrepreneurship. And I was like, I could call it the Startup Stoic, founding lessons from Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and building rented.com. And so I ended up getting injured. I had knee surgery. And so I was bedridden. I was like, okay, this is a great time. Let me write a book. So I wrote this book, The Startup Stoic. And it was 35 chapters using these Stoic quotes as launching pad. Okay, you first had the idea. Then how do you validate it? Then when do you know to quit your job? Then how to make your first hire? Every single step through shutting down or selling the company, right? Going through the entire journey. And I got an agent. I said, this is a good book. Like, you can write. But the Venn diagram of Stoics plus entrepreneurs, it's not a huge market. You have a bigger, better book in you. We know you have a bigger, better book. And that was late 2019, early 2020. And so I'm trying to figure out what could be more impactful instead of just for that group. And then COVID hits. And I'm talking to a friend of mine from college who founded the largest owner of single family residential homes in the US, went public, $20 billion company. Then he became the biggest venture capitalist investing in real estate tech startups. And we were talking about that first company. And he said, man, if I could do it over again, I would start that first company again in a heartbeat. So why? He said, because there's going to be an entire generation of people who are going to be perpetual renters. They're never going to be able to afford their home. They keep getting wiped out by the markets. Interest rates are going to go ballistic. These people will never be able to own a home. The rental market's going to just kill it. I would just keep buying up rental properties. And I left that thinking, man, that is depressing. Like, all these people doing everything they're told to do and doing great, but they're never going to be able to own their home. And then I started looking at how I was living my day, how my wife was living her day, everybody around. And like, oh God, what did the president tweet 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago? What are the case counts going on? What's in the news? Everything. So wait, we have a way bigger problem than a generation of perpetual renters. We have an entire society that have become perpetual renters of our minds. We give it away. We just give it away to the news cycle, to social media, to Netflix, to whatever it is. We give it away. And then at the end of the day, we're trying to rent pieces back. I'm like, God, I really don't have time for this. Or, oh, I really wish I could get those things out of my head so that I could get back in and focus. Why is that? And so that sent me down this rabbit hole of researching. Why is everybody doing it? Taylor Swift had a song, Free Rent Living in My Mind. Sam Altman, the guy who founded OpenAI, now the CEO, again, crazy week.
Yeah.
He tweeted, don't let jerks live rent free in your head, back in 2019. Look, it's not just me. It's not just my wife. It's not just people we hang out with. But Taylor Swift and Sam Altman deal with this? What in the world is going on? And so it got me into evolutionary biology and the whole background. I was like, okay, this could be something that could really help people. And so that led to writing Get Out of My Head to try to address that. Why do we live as tenants, not owners, of the only thing in our lives that we ever truly can own? Our physical body, a virus can get in, bacteria, it can get sick. Physical possessions, they break down, they can be stolen. We don't ever own them. But our mind, we own from birth, but we just give it away.
So in the book, you draw parallels between the human mind and real estate, emphasizing human ownership.
Yep.
So how can this concept be practically applied to our audience, retired athletes, business leaders, that are listening today, Andrew?
Yeah. So you have to think about it as there are three groups that we might be running from or to and giving away. So there are other people. That's probably the most obvious. We set the boundaries of, okay, am I going to let you in my mind? Not, right? We can't control if somebody walks by our house, unless we're in a gated community or something. But we get to decide, do we open the door and let them come sit on our couch and start eating French fries in our house? Like we know those boundaries. We
Mhm.
need to start exercising that same kind of conscious thought process with other people. Okay, am I going to give you the space in my mind or not? So one is other people. The others, events and circumstances outside of our control, right? There's this line of, at a certain point in my life, I realized I could be the kind of person who complains about the weather or not that kind of person. And when you hear it that way, who would ever choose to be the kind of person that complains about the weather?
I think what that comes with, so I probably got a couple of years on you, I'm suspecting. My whole audience knows I'm the old guy, I'm the old 51-year-old, but that comes with age. I'm telling you, I find as age goes on, you actually don't really care about a lot of things that I cared about when I was 41, 31, 21. I cared about the weather when I was 21. Now I know, okay, it's November. I live in Winnipeg. I got to put a jacket on today. And in December, I got to put a little warmer one on. In January, a little bit warmer. And then in June, I'll wear one. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. You can change the location, or you choose the location and you say, okay, this is what it is. Let me deal with it. If it's raining, okay, that's water. I'm going to take a shower and go for something. Like, I'm not worried about the water coming from the sky. I'll be okay.
Yes. Yes.
So the events and circumstances, and it could be something as mundane as the weather. It could be COVID and wars. Like, what are the things that we can control in that situation versus not? And how much of our mind do we want to be giving to things that aren't in our control there?
I love that you just said events and circumstances, because there's something hanging in my head right now, Andrew, which is we're not having this conversation right now. You're not writing the book if you don't get injured. Like, really, like that injury caused you to consider and act. Circumstance and event. You're like, okay, I'm injured. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Oh, my head's going crazy. I got to write something. Like, just go back to that moment, Andrew. Like, none of this is happening without that injury.
Yeah, I think, and COVID, right? So it's a
Yes.
certain thing, whether it's COVID, it's an injury, could be midlife crisis, right? Of, you see how these events and circumstances impact some people, and it's a downward spiral. Oh, they put on this amount of weight, they did this. And then you see other people like, oh my God, COVID, I've never been in better shape in my life, because they use it as this, wait, I'm at home now, I don't have to commute. Can I take that time and I put that in the gym and I work the same amount of time, right? There's so many directions we can take it if we change those stories we tell about the events and circumstances of what is in my control here, what is not. Okay, it's not in my control that this gym is closed. Or like with my injury, right? 4 years ago, blew out my knee, did the other knee this year. And the story could be, oh my God, I can't swim. I'm a swimmer. I can't get in. I can't go do squats. I can't do deadlifts. Like, I had this knee surgery. But the story was, but I'm a guy who moves every day. And I have all these bands and I have this. And so I did out 60 to 90 minutes of movement every single day, right? I'm like, I'm not going to lose anything because I'm not painting myself into this one story. It's broadening of, who am I? What is this label? So the events and circumstances can be used as an impetus for growth, an opportunity, or an excuse for regression. And we get to decide.
Yeah. Opportunity over obstacle, right? Because there's an obstacle, you have one of two things you can do with it. And you clearly have used every obstacle to turn them into opportunities for yourself.
Yeah. I don't know about every, but certain ones. And then there's the third category. So we have other people, we have events and circumstances, and then we have ourselves, different imagined versions of ourselves. So the people we think we should be, our parents wanted us to be, the people will be when we retire, all these things. And those are the hardest to evict and to get out of our heads. And so for free on my website and in the book, the knowledge is only useful if applied. And how many times you listen to a podcast, you go hear a speech, you read a book, like, this is amazing, it's going to change my life. And then you put it down and the next day, it looks the exact same as the day before. And so with the book, I very deliberately, every single chapter has a worksheet, has an exercise. Here's the exercise I do when I'm dealing with this. And here's the worksheet to go do it. And here are the instructions to go work through it. And pulled that out and just as a free download said, hey, if you don't want to even deal with reading the whole book, here are all the insights in the worksheet. I did a GPT for it. I'm going to launch for free to the market as well. When you say practically, how do you put this in practice? Here it is. Here's how you go do it, depending on what you're dealing with. If you're dealing stretch for time, okay, well, zero-based calendaring. How do I work on that? If you're feeling undervalued, okay, let me go do a price check on what my value is. How can I invest in that? How can I change that? If you're feeling like I'm perpetually living in the future of, oh, I can't wait till X happens. Okay, well, then let's back out of that. What are you running to in X? What is it specifically? You say, okay, it's retirement. Okay, what are you specifically trying to get to there? Oh, I want more time with my family. I want X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. What can you do today to get more of that? Why do you need to wait for the future to start building that? Don't put a label, define the specific characteristics you're trying to achieve. And how do you start building your life around that? If you're running from something, I'm running from my job. I'm running from this. Okay, what specifically are you running from? Oh, this Wednesday meeting that I have, this one person who's in there, just always I feel like, okay, it's not your whole job. Maybe you feel great the other days. Maybe you enjoy the work you're actually doing. It's that interaction. What can you do to start changing how that interaction impacts you? Could you go have a conversation with that person? Could you stop attending that meeting? What is it that goes into it? But being able to take that control today, as opposed to always kicking it off to the future, because unless you know what you want that future to be, it's just this pie in the sky dream. And most of the time you get there and it didn't solve anything because you didn't understand what you were actually running to. You never thought it through. You just had this label.
Andrew, you mentioned out of the three, the biggest challenge we have is ourself, our own mirror, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Would you be vulnerable with me and share with me in an audience? You're a very successful human being. You're a successful entrepreneur, athlete, educated. What was the biggest obstacle in your mind, the biggest hurdle in your mind back in the day to move forward?
I don't think it's an individual one. I think we all have 1,000 invisible battles that we're dealing
On
with.
our shoulders. Yeah, mine is this right here. Peanut butter. I got it taped up because November, it's no month. So I've challenged all my guests and I'm going to challenge you too. So the ask of the month here is, what would you say no to? So it kind of themes into the conversation here, right? Because for me, Andrew, peanut butter goes with everything, including just a spoon. And it gets in the way of my life, right? I'm just peanut butter all the time. And I've been off peanut butter for the month of November and I feel great. My body feels great, less inflammation. I just feel awesome. So I say it in an entertaining, informing perspective, but it's a demon that sits on the shoulder for me because it just gets in the way of everything. What about you? So we'll get back to your November challenge later, but you said there's a number of things that not one individual thing, but what's the one thing, or what are some things that you wrestle with, Andrew?
The single biggest and most consistent is the story I tell myself about what's going on. And it whether it was when I was a consultant and not making the most of the opportunity I was having there, because I felt, oh, it's all imposed on me. I'm having to do this, as opposed to I'm getting this incredible opportunity. People try their whole lives to, what can I get out of this? What is it that I want to get out of this, and how do I shape that? I was a victim as opposed to the author of my story. With my wife, all the time, I create this story, right? So she'll say something, and I create a story about what all that meant. And the more now I just play back, well, so you said this, and you say, actually, I didn't. Like, here were the words I said. You reframed all those words. And now you're saying I said this, but that's not what I said. I said this other thing. Okay. And so just back to the challenging the assumptions. I create these stories based on all these assumptions. You may see that tip of the iceberg, and then I come up with what underneath looks like. And maybe 50% of the time it's right, maybe 5% of the time it's right. But unless I go challenge and dig deeper on it, the story isn't necessarily based on reality, right? You see this point and then you're extrapolating this crazy line.
Well, sometimes, Andrew, it's just the story is just the iceberg on top. It has nothing to do with underneath it. That's what we're talking. I can relate to that. I have people in my life that think about everything happening underneath the ocean, like yourself. Okay, well, here's the iceberg. Yeah, but what about everything underneath that's going to blow up the world? No, we're actually not worried about everything underneath the ocean right now. Just the top of the iceberg. That's what you're talking about, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. Because I create, and sometimes there's nothing under the ocean. Sometimes it's just this little thing, and I've just made up this whole world. And intellectually knowing it
Yes.
is not the same as being able to realize it and live it in the moment.
Yes. It's like
So
watching a movie and not separating the fact that's actually a movie going on. It's not real, but yet in front of your eyes are convincing you that it's real, right?
right,
Same thing, right?
correct, because we were playing that movie in our mind. It's a funny thing about the future or the past. The only thing that ever exists, ever happens, is the present.
Yes.
Definitionally, we only ever live in the present. That's all there ever is. The past is only our imagination. It's these stories we're telling ourselves. The future is only our imagination. And what we're doing in the present can go create the future if we do the execution. But otherwise, it's just these stories. And we can tell these stories in ways that are empowering, that say, hey, I'm consciously going to pick up the pen and decide the tone of voice I'm going to tell this story in. Intentional. Or we can revert to our less ideal selves. And it's that little person on your shoulder. You're
Mhm.
not good enough. You didn't do this. It's Peter Attia talks about his is called Bobby Knight.
Mhm.
Just shouts at him, right?
Mhm.
So again, the natural thing is to have the Bobby Knight, is to have this. And people say, how do you fix it? Say, oh my God, I don't know. I'm not Buddha. Like I haven't fixed it. But what I do get better at is noticing sooner,
Mhm.
noticing before I spin out further down. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What is this story I'm telling myself? What was it that actually happened? What was it that was actually said? What were the words? Let me start unpacking that. And God bless my daughter. She's so good. She's 7, but she's all the time. She'll challenge me on it. I'll be acting in some ways like, Daddy, what is going on? And unpacking, and we'll dig. And wait, Daddy, it's about that? Why didn't you just talk about that? Because I didn't realize it was about that until you started taking me
Yeah.
through this process. And so I haven't gotten great at it, but I've gotten better than I was. And it's with just a lot of practice.
With so much content being generated today around us, everywhere we look, there's content being generated, which means there's narratives being generated everywhere.
Mhm.
Right. And I love the power of a narrative. I love the power of a good story. If there's anything I'm learning from this show, is we all have stories to tell. Right. And but they equally, when they get into your own head, they can eat you alive. I have had to use this show, Andrew, to be vulnerable back to you as my own platform to start telling my new story,
Mm.
to create my own new narrative instead of what was going on in my head months ago, because I was wrestling with that guy on my shoulder.
Yeah.
So this has been a place for me to come out and talk about the narrative, talk about the story, and get ahead of it and not worry about what's happening underneath the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it comes back to some level of that social connection piece, right? So
Yes.
we
Yes.
think about health and athletes, you're coming from a certain world where we think about health in a very focused or isolated area. So there's fitness, right? For a lot of people, that is health. It's
Yeah.
fitness, fitness,
Yes.
fitness. And I remember for the longest time not believing or knowing anything about nutrition and
Mhm.
how important that was. And when I was a swimmer, the junk we ate, I say, wow, if I knew then what I know now about nutrition, I would have been a different athlete. So we have fitness, we have nutrition. Then we have sleep and recovery. It wasn't until my mid 30s that I realized, Dr. Walker, all these other people, how important sleep is.
Mhm.
I would just grind, right? I was a distance swimmer. We had 6 days a week of practice. I would go in on Sunday to go get another 5,000 kilometers or 5,000 meters in and everything, right? Like the idea of recovery or needing sleep, that was for the week. I didn't need sleep. No, you're a human being. You need sleep. You got to recover. So we have fitness, nutrition, sleep and recovery. Then we have stress management and mindset. And if we're not dealing with that, we're not actually healthy, right? It starts to impact us because if we're stressed, our cortisol levels are up. We're not going to recover the same. Our fitness isn't going to reach where it is. And then we have social connection. So we know if you're socially isolated, if you're lonely, all the markers, your blood pressure's up, your cortisol levels are up. You could be killing it on these other pieces, but you don't have that social connection. You're not actually healthy. And being healthy, investing in your longevity, investing in your health span, you have to have all five. And I think, especially post COVID, you see the rich world spending $600 billion less a year now on social activities, on clubs, on restaurants. They're buying more items, sitting at home, streaming at home, not going to the movie theater. And we're not yet seeing what the long-term impact of letting that fifth piece of our health fall off is going to look like. And I think it's really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, you strike me as a tech guy who's probably not obviously a tech guy, but tech is a part of your business. You understand tech. You weaved Altman into the conversation. You built a GPT. Talk about the dynamic, often changing world of technology, unpredictable world that it is, and how our audience can blend technology into their careers moving post athleticism or transitioning in business. It's some people don't want to embrace tech, some people recognize that they have to. You clearly have built business using technology.
Yeah, but I started, like we talked about, super manual, right? Do the things that don't skill, do the things that you have the personal skill set to do to see where technology is helpful and if it's not, right? So starting something, whether it's a new company or a new part of the company to get started, I'll start with me very personally. So I understand the process. I understand the work behind it. I document it all. Okay, great. Can I document it so well that I can go move it to a super cheap resource? So maybe that's somebody on my team. Maybe it's outsourced through Upwork and say, hey, here's the whole documentation. Can you go do this now? And then track that. And if it's something that has to be done enough, and say, okay, let's go invest and build technology to go do it. We don't need a human to do this because technology can do that. So it's working through the process of tech enabled as opposed to, hey, I need technology. You don't necessarily need technology till you know what the problem is and figure out the best solution. And maybe the best solution is technology. But I don't automatically start there because a lot of times you can fetishize, oh, it's tech, it's so wizardry.
Yes. Yes.
It's not solving anything.
Yeah. You've done a lot in your career, in your lifetime. What would be one unexpected lesson you learned along your journey, Andrew McConnell, that still influences you today?
I actually go back to the sleep point of I get in these times, and I'm a very visual person, where I'll go through the day and the colors are more muted. Everything's a little grayer. And I find on these days, I'll start contemplating some existential questions or things in the business or things in my life will seem much worse. And I would just spin out on these for years. And only in the past couple of years have I realized, wait, maybe I just need to get some more sleep. Maybe these things are real. Maybe these things are real issues and I need to deal with them. But I'm thinking today is not that day. Let me go get some rest. Let me write this down. So I come back. Let me get it out of my head onto a piece of paper. So I know I'm going to tackle it, but it's not going to be right now. It's not going to be today. Let me go get good night's sleep. And once I feel rested, let me go reassess. And what I find is 90+% of the time, it was those stories, right? I was just creating the stories. And the other 10%, they're real, but I'm way more effective and productive going at it well rested and fresh and effective, going at it that way. Power of sleep and things not being as urgent as I might have told myself.
So it's a term.
I can take this time.
It's a term that I've coined. It's artificially urgent.
Yeah.
It's like we've artificially made this time up in our head that something has to be done. And Andrew, society does a lot of that for us.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I got to have this sales. You've been in the corporate world like I have. Oh, we got to get the sales presentation done by Friday, or we all got to be dressed. We all got to act a certain way. And we all got to, and it's this, when you step outside of those conversations, it's really absurd, isn't it? Because there's all this artificial urgency and artificial idolization of a situation when it's just some words on a piece of paper and you just want to do business with somebody.
I would try to explain it to my team. I'm like, look, I do not want to diminish anything you do.
Yes.
What we're doing is important. We're serving clients is important, but I do want to put it in perspective. I worked in Afghanistan. We had meetings canceled because there were firefights. Like we would land at the airport. There's cordite smells everywhere. It's all going on. What I can guarantee you is this will still be there tomorrow. Everyone's going to get home safely tonight from this job. So let's just put in perspective. It'll be important, but it's not literally life and death. We are not in the emergency room right now. This is not life and death stuff. So let's put it in perspective. Let's take it seriously, but let's not over stress on it.
That's a wonderful reminder, Andrew McConnell, because again, you know what I hate? People who set Friday afternoon meetings or make these artificially urgent Friday meetings for people just because they want to be the boss. Wait a minute. Why don't you focus on the results? Set a time that's good for everybody, and we'll all agree that this is urgent. We have a deadline around it. We're all human beings. We're not children. We're all adults. Okay, this is important. Yeah. Okay, team, let's align. What's a good date? Okay, great. And then but yet this culture sets these artificial deadlines, artificial urgency, and then we all fail. We all don't get any sleep, and we all suffer.
And it's going back to testing those assumptions.
Yeah.
I was setting up a recurring meeting with someone. We were going through. We're like, oh, should we do it to wrap the week, et cetera? So look, you and I both know we do that. We're going to be so excited. We're going to want to go jump in and do all this work coming out of that. But we also want to be there with our families on the weekend. So why not do that? Why don't we not set ourselves up to fail on the family front, and let's catch up on Monday? And then we can jump in and dive in and do all this. But took this conscious, let's talk this through. What are our values? What do we prioritize in this situation? What is the outcome we're trying to achieve across these different pieces? And what's the best answer for that, as opposed to the easy answer right now to just solve for?
I'm going to use a ridiculously cheesy word, but what a mature thing to do. You know what I mean? That's actually an adult conversation you had with your colleague there, wasn't it? No, and I know it's humorous, but it's okay. What's the best thing for us? I want to go hang with my family. It's okay. Let's come to work and work hard on Monday.
Yeah.
So let's end it there, because the way we ended there is you said no to something. You said, no, there's no need for us to rush and get this meeting done on Friday and get it done on the weekend. Let's get to work on Monday. So a few moments ago, I talked to you about no month. And often some people sometimes say yes to too much, and they should just say no to something. So last year, Andrew, I was just feeling shitty about myself after Halloween. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put some peanut butter aside for the month. And I did. Okay. And it changed my November, and it became no month for me. Yeah. And on my calendar, no month shows up, and I just say no to things. And 20 some odd days in. So what could I challenge you for the last 8 days? Going to tag you up on LinkedIn. And what would you pledge on a piece of paper for myself and our team that you would say no to for the end of the month?
So this is back to when you know something, it's really hard for me not to do it. So it's, as soon as I heard alcohol is not good, I stopped drinking. As soon as I read this book, it said animal protein was bad, I went vegan. So I don't have a lot of stuff.
Okay. So then let me challenge you then, that maybe there's some things over the next 8 days that you might be challenged to say yes to. And I'm going to challenge you to say, no, you know what? I had a good conversation with Keith. You gave me some good reminders. But no, I'm going to take some time right now and lean back on my values, because let's face it, man, as driven as you are, there's still some times that I know a meeting comes ahead of the kids or ahead of the family. We all do it. So I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you that you're going to say, okay, Keith, I'm going to say no to a few things for the next 8 days. Is that fair?
I'm going to say no to anything that I'm not doing that day. I'm not going to schedule later, because I'm selling my future me. I'm like, I don't really want to do this. I'm going to do it later. And then I get there, I'm like, I still don't want to do this. So I'm going to say no to anything that I'm not ready to do right now.
Perfect. So we're going to write that down. I'm going to tag you up, and we got a big thread going up on LinkedIn from all the guests in November. So you'll get connected to a few folks along the way, and we're going to hold you to that, Andrew McConnell. I'll also tell you something you mentioned a few moments ago about having instead of giving. I have to do this. I have to do this instead of I get to do this. Yeah. I was taught last week by a gentleman named John Graham Harper. He gave me some vitamin G, and I'm going to give it back to you, because I take my vitamin C every day, my vitamin D, my vitamin E, and I'm now also have that awareness of that vitamin G. I don't have to do this. I'm grateful to do this. You follow me?
Yeah, 100%. There's honestly, there's a whole chapter in the book around the gratitude, right? It's easy to be grateful for the things we'd wish for on the front end. But a real gratitude practice is being grateful for those things that we would have actively wished didn't happen.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I would not be here. I would not be who I am if not for that, right? Like that knee injury.
Yes.
I'm grateful that I got hurt and I was bedridden, right? Because that led me on this journey of research, of self-discovery, of writing this book, of going and helping others, right? How can you learn to be grateful for those obstacles?
Andrew, before we say goodbye, this is a minute for you to plug anything, plug the book, plug the website, plug the business, something that I have maybe asked you about that you want to get out there for the audience to be aware of. Andrew?
Yeah, so most of my stuff, the easiest, I'm on LinkedIn, right? He's going to tag me, connect with me there. We'd love to continue the conversation. My website has all this stuff for free. You can just go download there. It's andrewmcconnell.com. Get everything there. And my biggest encouragement is, one, the note I keep above my desk. Remember, other people aren't the problem, right? We get to control the story. We get to control our lives. We are the agents of our lives. And in that agency, please make sure that you're recognizing and investing across all 5 pillars of your health. It's not just the fitness. It's not just the nutrition. It's not just the sleep and recovery, the stress management and mindset and social connection. You really need to be covering your life across all of them, because that's how you live a healthy, full, wonderful life.
What a wonderful conversation today with Andrew McConnell. Thanks for joining me today in the lab.
It's my pleasure. It was great to see you.
Awesome. You too. I'm going to throw you over into the green room for a second while I say goodbye to the audience, and I'll come back and walk you out. All right? Hang tight, my friend.
Good.
All right. We're going to move Andrew out of here. We're going to move the camera to over here, and we're going to bring up the single thing there. I hope you guys enjoyed the show today as much as I did. I know I say that after every show, but what am I going to lie? No, I wake up every single day very grateful that I get to do this. And I joke that it's the most fun I've had not making any money. But you know why? Because what's going to come? I do. It's inevitable. We're creating good content. We're creating quality content. We have amazing guests, and we're consistent. And we do this with integrity. I don't know about you, but all those variables will add up one day to making some money. So I hope you guys are enjoying the content. I hope you enjoyed the show. Join me tomorrow. Patrick Mark is joining me in the lab, a guy who started Google Play. So if you have an Android phone, he's the guy who started the store where you can download your apps. Some pretty cool stuff. I'm Keith Bilous, live in the lab with my jar of taped up peanut butter. November 20th. Look at that. 22nd, whatever it is, 22nd. No peanut butter out of here. You guys have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow live in the lab, noon central, -6 GMT on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And one last secret that he didn't talk about. Go live on an island. Go live on an island. I think you have a better quality of life. I'm Keith, and I'm out of here.